There we go. All right. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. And this is our second quarterly roundtable of 2024. It's been a very busy start to the year, and it's reassuring to see so many of your faces that I know are out there doing awesome work and incredible efforts towards our shared goals for a 1.5 aligned agenda for Australia. And yeah, first, please all jump into the chat and introduce yourselves and acknowledge the country you're joining this call from today. I would like to extend my deepest respects to elders past and present for the Yagara and Turrbal peoples that I have the privilege to live and work on, and am constantly reminded of the enduring stewardship of this care for country that, yeah, it has meant that I can still enjoy so many beautiful areas today. So a special acknowledgement to many of our First Nations partners, including the Indigenous Peoples Organisation Australia, and where we'll be greeted by Kathy Eatock to give us an update on today's call, hopefully with the work they're doing in Australia's climate agenda. So for those new to this roundtable, Better Futures Australia is a non-partisan alliance of climate champions representing every sector of society and the economy. And we share in our commitment to work together, including with all levels of government, to over-deliver on Australia's climate commitments. And I'd like to just shout out to my colleagues on the call from the Better Futures program to give a wave. We've got Kira, Quimby, and Jordan. So they're the faces to the names you'll see in emails and other things as we approach our key event in September this year. So we've come together through a range of events and activities and our stellar sector working groups. So a couple of faces on here today that'll be giving some updates on what's keeping them busy. And that, yeah, for the last over 3 years, these roundtables have been a really valuable opportunity to get a little insight to those different pieces of the advocacy efforts underway in different sectors or regions of the country. So hopefully this session today will give us all time to celebrate the recent achievements from different initiatives and also look to where we can collectively combine or join forces to advocate and strengthen those efforts. So please do jump in at any point and ask questions or make suggestions for where you think there might be an opportunity for others representing other groups or organizations to support the work that you are also involved in. So I'm definitely looking forward to learning what's happening and where we can support from the Better Futures side today. And first up, we do have a bit of an update from my colleague Kira Denham on how the Better Futures Forum program is coming together. And she'll also introduce you to a couple of the advisory committee members and partners working with us. And we're very appreciative of those shared efforts to pull together an impactful program, and also the shared advocacy efforts around that. And we'll then jump to the priority updates from those sector representatives. And after that, we'll have a bit of a chance to explore any opportunities for collaboration out to the September forum and beyond. It's going to be a critical year with some key moments, especially early 2025. So we're very keen to listen and learn and find those opportunities for where we can support each other. So I will hand over to my colleague Kira to update you all on the forum. Thanks, Kira.
Hi, everyone. So good to see you all. And apologies if my internet is a bit slow. It seems to be slow on these roundtable meetings. So I'm Kira, and I'm coming from the Bundjalung Nation in the Northern Rivers, Northern New South Wales, where I live and work. And I'm leading the Better Futures Forum, which is a huge project, but it's really kind of at this exciting moment where we're getting you all involved and having your input, kind of going into the deeper pieces of the program. So I'll just kind of give an overview. Really, the objectives of the forum are to bring leaders from this diverse, multi-sectoral network and government levels during the parliamentary sitting week in the second week of September in Canberra to showcase impactful climate initiatives. And we really want to spotlight these successful place-based climate solutions and projects and champions, and really kind of amplify that climate leadership in Australia. So it's setting the stage for a collaboration on climate solutions for the next term of government, and with we're all got our sights on COP31. So thank you to everyone who's kind of contributed so far, and I'm kind of looking forward to working with more of you to go deeper in the next month or two. At the moment, day one is focusing on those local national stories and how communities are driving a shift to that renewable, prosperous, resilient future that we're all working towards. And we'll also kind of have a focus on the Renew Australia for All campaign on that first day. And then day two explores the global perspectives on climate action, focusing on international cooperation and Australia's role in global and regional climate initiatives. And again, a look to COP31. And we've got some kind of exciting updates from Kasaya from WWF on a base camp that we'll be partnering on for that second day. And some of the speakers we confirmed so far, Brendan French from Energy Consumers Australia, Bradley Hopkins from AEMO, is also on the board of Original Power, Matt Keane, ACT Chief Minister. These are all, white men, but we'll be definitely making sure that we're getting that broader representation. And we've also got tentative replies from Minister McBain and other government representatives. But the program is going to be jam-packed, and we've also got live podcast recordings, live artist performances, brass bands, film screenings that we're going to be hosting during the forum as well. So it's really that kind of celebration that we're hoping to create and inspire and involve all of those sectors to retell the Australian story. So it's a big couple of days, and hoping to have you all involved as much as possible. And we've also got some updates from partners. Michaela Jameson from ClimateWorks is on our advisory committee, and Michaela's here today, I hope.
Yeah.
Hi, Michaela. She's going to give us a quick update just on their ClimateWorks role in shaping the program. And then we'll also have an update from Kasaya Baba, who's leading COP31 partnerships with WWF. And then finally, we have Carla Pascoe from the Women's Environmental Leadership Australia to give us a quick update on their new gender climate environment report and how they are contributing to ensuring that we have that gender lens on the forum. That is, always a good reminder, especially the work we're doing in this multi-sectoral, the multi-sectoral work that we're doing. So I'll pass it over to Michaela if you want to give us a quick update.
Sure. All right. No worries. Thanks. Hi, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Michaela. I am the Australian Stakeholder Relations Coordinator here at ClimateWorks, and just one of quite a number of people on the advisory committee helping to get this forum off the ground. It's very exciting. At the moment, I've been working with Kara particularly in a couple of different opportunities for the forum. One directly coming from ClimateWorks, we're excited to be launching our decarbonisation opportunities report at the forum itself. That is our subnational policy report, which kind of analyses targets, policies and programs announced by the state and territory governments. And so it gives us a kind of an understanding of the climate policy momentum and opportunities for action within Australia. This isn't a report that we've been doing a couple of times over, and it's something that we've had quite a lot of engagement with different states and territory governments. And so we're looking to not only launch the report at the forum, but also get representatives from each of those to be doing a bit of a panel discussion. And Kiara and I are also talking at the moment about trying to get a community element into that session as well. So watch that space. We're still trying to figure out the details. We're also excited about the proposed regional initiatives accelerating clean energy economy session. Wow, that is a long title, guys. Let's maybe think about that. But basically, yeah, we're helping just with our networks, ClimateWorks, where networks can try to get some connections to the forum, finding those local case studies and illustrative storytellers to really highlight in that session. So ClimateWorks's, I guess, role in that is basically just helping define those stories. And I know with a lot of the other partners will be feeding into that as well. And the last one that I'm also being focused on is really around the nature-based solutions working group, and there's a panel at the moment, like a panel discussion that's in the schedule right now, and that's kind of still forming. I know particularly Joe from ClimateWorks has been having chats with our colleague Jen at Pew around how that might form together. And I know Jen has been putting a fair amount of work in trying to secure a potential international speaker who might be able to come and speak to us more about how the nature-based solutions and climate and nature nexus, how that would really kind of have that international view. I will leave that to Jen at Pew to give us any updates if she can, but I know that's something that the nature-based solutions working group have been doing a lot of talking about. And of course, with the Nature Positive Summit coming up, that kind of area will be really interesting, I think, to explore. So that's my 3-minute condensed update. I hope I was within time.
Thanks, Michaela. Yeah, it's fantastic to have you on board and have ClimateWorks so deeply involved in the forum and the working groups. Kasaya, are you there? Kasaya is the COP31 partnerships lead with WWF, and we've been having a discussion about hosting a COP31 base camp alongside the forum in September. Kasaya, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. Mbula vinaka, everybody. I'm Kesaya with WWF Australia, and I am really looking forward to working with you all. The WWF has been part of the COP31 collaboration group that got started last year, 2023, in hopeful anticipation of Australia's bid to host COP31 in partnership with the Pacific being successful, and COP31 being held in the Oceania region in 2026. So that collaboration is a group of organizations keeping each other informed, updated, and informing their networks about the opportunities of hosting COP31 in Australia. And together they hosted a base camp, COP31 base camp in Sydney last year with Impact X, which some of you may have attended or heard of. And that was really to talk about the opportunities of COP31 and get people to talk more about it and get involved. So the idea is that with the Better Futures Forum being held in Canberra in September, that we could host a COP31 base camp alongside the forum and really draw on the important and interesting things that will be happening at the forum, as well as the unique audience that Canberra can offer, including the diplomatic corps, as well as government, and connect them to people who will be working on, or really important in COP31, including some international people to come in from the Pacific. So we are working closely together to shape up a really interesting agenda, and also to kind of weave COP31 into the conversation at the forum as well. So that will look like perhaps an evening event within the forum, or as well as thinking about sessions within it as well. So that's shaping up now, and we hope that we will get some very interesting speakers in for that.
Thank you, Kasaya. Great to have you here with the network as well. And we have also got a report from Smart Energy Council and Climate Council on the opportunities of COP31 that we'll be hoping to launch on that second day as well. So a lot happening. And finally, we have Kyla Pascoe from Wella, just to give us an overview of their new gender climate report. And Kyla's also hoping to kind of give some input onto the forum program, just to make sure that we do have that gender lens on the conversation as well. So Kyla, are you there with us?
Yes, I am. I'm just going to find my slides and bring them up.
Hi.
Here we go. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. Now, I promise I'm going to keep to the 3 minutes that I've been allotted, so I may have to speak quickly. So yeah, I'm the Research and Policy Manager at Women's Environmental Leadership Australia, or WELA for short, and we wanted to let you know briefly about a new report that we've just released. So it's called Gender, Climate and Environmental Justice in Australia, and it's essentially looking at the gendered nature of climate and environmental issues in the Australian context. So we're trying to provide an evidence base that we can then all use for further policy and advocacy work. So we find that women and gender diverse people have been disproportionately impacted by climate and environmental issues, and that's across a range of different aspects of their lives, including their housing and financial security, their workplace conditions and opportunities, their health and safety, and perhaps most alarmingly, there's a really well-documented increase in gender-based violence that occurs during and after disasters. But we were really keen in this report to show that women and gender diverse people are more than just victims. And so the second half of the report looks at the benefits of gender diverse responses and solutions to climate and environmental issues. There's really interesting evidence to show that having more women involved often leads to better environmental outcomes across a range of sectors and industries, including politics, on boards, in conservation and natural resource management. There's also evidence that suggests that women often bring a different kind of approach to these problems, and it may be one that is more nature-based, more relational, more locally responsive and more sustainable. And finally, if we're going to transition rapidly into a renewable economy, it's really important that all members of our society are involved, both to speed up that transition, but also to benefit from the associated economic gains. So the report ends with a series of conclusions and recommendations that I'd really encourage you to have a look at. They relate to leadership and decision-making, to policy-making, investment, international obligations, gender and disasters, the need for more diverse voices in formulating responses, and then kind of underpinning that, all of that, that Australia needs to move towards a clean and caring economy. So one in which we centre care for people and care for planet under all of our policy making. We're very excited also that we've been given funding for our next stage. So we get to take this evidence and now really try to implement as much as we can. So we're going to be establishing a new network, initiating some working groups, trying to create and shift our kind of national narrative around gender and climate, launching a national survey and expanded policy work. So as we're in this kind of growth phase, we'd really love anyone that's interested in working with us or learning more to get in touch. And Better Futures Australia has been inviting us to look at the way that they're developing the forum and provide a gender lens onto all of the sessions and thinking behind that, because it's going to be really important that the gender is part of the agenda as we move forward. Thank you for that. I hope I kept to my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Kyla. As an academic, you did so well. You've definitely kept in the 3 minutes. Yeah, and it's just fantastic just to have the, you know, that constant reminder that we need to be thinking about this agenda. And I think as well, you know, we've got the theme of wellbeing economy within the forum, and just being able to think about how we're moving forward in that just transition within that caring capacity as well. So thank you for joining us today. I'll hand back to Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Carla and Keziah and Michaela, for those updates. That was really great to hear how it's all coming together in different ways. So next we have a number of representatives from different organisations that are engaging in sector working groups or involved in initiatives run by partners to Better Futures Australia. So we'd love to hear from them what the advocacy priorities are, any updates on recent achievements, and a focus in on opportunities where we can support and work together. So I am just checking if we have Kathy Etic on the call, but I don't think we do. So that's a shame, but I will throw to my colleague Soleil to give an update for the Transport Working Group. Thanks for joining us today, Soleil.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. And yeah, if you don't know me, as Lisa said, I'm Soleil and I work at CANA, and I've been coordinating the transport work. And yeah, so since the last roundtable meeting, we had a big win on transport. So I'll start with that. The new vehicle efficiency standard was passed into law, which is really exciting. And it was a huge win and a long, hard-fought campaign. And really a great example of excellent collaboration amongst BFA members and CANA members. Yeah, so just wanted to shout that out and celebrate it. And it's going to be coming into effect next year, and really will result in some substantial emission reduction on transport. So that's great. And yeah, people generally feel like we did end up with fairly strong policy settings. So that's a big win, considering the enormous amount of pushback there was from certain parts of the auto industry and certain political actors as well. And yeah, and hats off to everyone in this space who might have worked on that campaign, because I see a few people here. Yeah, and so now that that is done and dusted, there's some other priorities for the group. The main one being engaging around the federal government's transport and infrastructure net zero roadmap and action plan, which is a bit of a mouthful. So that's part of their whole of economy approach to reaching net zero. And they're publishing pathways for how they'll get there. And so recently the government released a consultation roadmap as part of that process, and that's currently open for public submissions until July 26th. So yeah, this again is another great opportunity for cross-sector collaboration. And our working group has actually drafted a joint reaction to the consultation roadmap. It's a fairly high-level 2-page thing, and we're just about to try to get sign-ons from as many people as we can. So I'll share that link, and would love for everyone here to have a look and consider signing on. And yeah, the other things we have planned are probably a brown bag lunch webinar where we'll be talking more about kind of initial analysis of what's in the consultation roadmap and sharing some advice for people's submissions. And then the other thing to flag that we're paying attention to as well is the National Urban Policy, which is also in development right now. The government released a draft policy, which is open for submission until the 4th of July. So we're also encouraging everyone to participate in that. We probably won't have a submission guide for that but keen to hear who else is planning to make submissions so we can get aligned on that. And a lot of the active transport pieces fit in there, so it's worth paying attention to as well. Yeah, so those were kind of the key things I wanted to flag, and I'll follow up with links for the sign-on statements, and yeah, hope to be able to collaborate with more folks in this space on all of that.
Thanks so much, Soleil. We greatly appreciate your expertise and that of the members of the Transport Working Group to help us with those submissions and other transport decarbonisation initiatives. So I think that's a good segue to Scott McHenry, who's here today to give us an update on behalf of the Local Gov Working Group. And I know that the results have come in for the Local Gov Climate Review Survey, and our colleagues Imogen and others are working to interpret the findings from that survey of councils and cities across Australia, and we'll be looking to those findings to make our submissions to the National Urban Plan and the Transport Roadmap. So your guidance there will be greatly appreciated. And I will throw to Scott to give us an update on the local gov priorities at the moment and where we can help. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Lisa, and hello, everybody. So just as Kiara mentioned at the start, so we've been leading the approach to Mick Bain's office regarding launching that review just mentioned at the event on Tuesday, the 10th of September. So stay tuned. We'll keep you abreast of that. Jordan's been doing some great work behind the scenes and setting up like a collaboration tool as well. So it's like an Airtable program that it's going to help us sharpen and focus our advocacy and really understand who's talking to who about what issues. So please reach out to Jordan if you've got some questions or want to know more a little bit about the Airtable solution that we've been sort of starting to pilot on. As mentioned, we are considering looking how the National Urban Policy submission will look, and we've been tic-tacking a bit with our friends at ClimateWorks on informing that. So there'll be another of other submissions happening from across the local government sector, including the state-based associations, etc. And so we'll be making sure that we're all kind of saying the same thing and in furious agreement on the decarbonisation, the adaptation piece. Many of those same associations are looking at a submission to the net zero transport sector. We'll probably be putting in something that says that we want a science-based target and budget approach that we know that is not really getting much traction with the federal government at the moment. We've already had some meetings with the teams that are responsible for the net zero plan, and they've basically been saying to us that government have decided they won't be adopting science-based targets or budgets for sectors. So that's not really going down that well with a lot of councils, and we're currently considering what is the advocacy approach on this and potential further correspondence with McAllister and Bowen's office with the sort of not good enough kind of message, given that our friends in New Zealand have been able to do it. Just seems like a bit of a number crunching exercise. So I'd be keen to hear from anybody in this room if they've got any views on that and the potential mismatch around how the net zero plan is not really grouped in sectors that are relevant for carbon accounting. So I'll put my email in the chat if you want to chat about that. We've recently had an ACCU briefing session. I think there was lots of punters in this call that were part of that. That was good. And just in terms of the advocacy priorities going forward, that'll be mostly around having local government contributions to the NDCs recognised. So a bit of work to do in that space over the next couple of months in terms of that announcement happening in March. So we're really pushing for local government's voluntary action to be recognised above and beyond what's going to be in the NDCs, and pushing for a multi-level governance approach in terms of policy making and get councils at a seat at the decision-making table. Yeah, that's it. I can hear my little alarm dinging. So thanks for my 3 minutes.
Thanks, Scott. That wasn't very kind of me, was it, to turn it on when you started? But that was just me fumbling to work out and remind myself how the apps work on Zoom. So thank you for that. And I'll also add, we have a meeting with the Department of Infrastructure rep for the regional development authorities on Thursday to get a better sense of the role that they're playing in implementing the Champ Pledge that Scott mentioned, and other pieces around multi-level governance, and our desire for the regionally and locally determined contributions towards Australia's MDC. So yeah, some great work underway with the local gov colleagues. So thank you, Scott, and everyone working effortlessly. Is that the right word? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's incredible and inspiring. Thank you. So next up, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Kathy Verheyen. Sorry if I've mispronounced your surname, Kathy, who I've never actually had the pleasure to meet before. So it's great to put a face to the name. And she is here standing in for, we usually have Hudson with us to give an update for the Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance and the great work that they're driving for Australia's built environment and construction and infrastructure and all those big pieces of Australia's greenhouse gas inventory and decarbonisation challenge. So thank you, Kathy, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And you pronounced that absolutely perfectly correctly. That's it. So yes, Kathy Verheyen. I work for Climate Kick Australia, and I'm Senior Project Manager of MECLA, as Lisa pointed out, the Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance. Yeah, Hudson can't make it today, so he asked me to talk. And for those of you who haven't heard much about MECLA, we're now over 175 members from government, industry and academia working together to decarbonise the building and construction industry. And our focus on the producing knowledge outputs and practical resources as a do tank, for the stakeholders across the sector, and providing industry input in government consultations and industry association consultations. So as examples from the last few months, I would love to point out a spotlight event we had on designing out carbon about 2 weeks ago with over 350 participants, which was fantastic. Great example of the sort of knowledge output into capacity building in the industry, showing case studies, some information about embodied carbon and the opportunities and importance of design in building, and how that goes all the way from the designing and construction all the way to the reuse and afterlife. We had a fantastic resource presented there, how to build a disassembly plan by one of our members, and a couple of case studies. We also released a guide to low embodied carbon concrete in Australia in May, which we presented at the Sydney Build conference, basically giving a definition of what low embodied carbon concrete can look like, and a step guide and assumptions for considerations for procurers, how to get about procuring it and how to find out what does it actually constitute. And we have received requests from the ACT government to actually use this guide heavily and draw from it for the policy that they're working on for procurement at the moment. So that's a fantastic input that this collaboration can give into government policies. What we have coming up is a briefing on aspects issues paper, which is going to be tomorrow. So if you are interested, what they're working on at the moment, I'll put the link in the chat afterwards. That's tomorrow at 10:30. It's a 60-minute event. And then moving forward, I'm running out of time. We're working on an action guide, which is essentially bringing together all the resources from all the actors for the different stages of the procurement process on how to start engaging, how to specify expectations on reducing embodied carbon. That's currently going through some feedback process internally and will hopefully come out by the next meeting. So that's it. Oh, on time.
That was perfect. Amazing. Thank you, Kathy. And so much great stuff happening through MECLA. So thank you for all you and colleagues are doing to drive that amazing piece of work. And I see Monica is also on the call with us today. So a big shout out to Monica. Yeah, that might be a good transition to an update from our sector working group that delves a bit into land use trade-offs. So the nature-based solutions and land use group, we've got the excellent Stuart Blanche from the WWF team to give an update on behalf of that group. Thanks, Stuart, for joining us today. Stuart, I think you are muted. Sorry. No, audio issue. Okay, no worries. We will come back to you. Oh dear. Sorry, Stuart. Okay. No, still can't hear you. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so we've also got Amy. I'm hating to put you on the spot, but we have Amy Lomax from Climate Ready Australia, who's also been engaging with the Better Futures program a little bit. I wondered, yeah, Amy, did you want to just give a quick update on the Climate Ready initiative and what the Alliance of Peaks have as their priorities at the moment? Thanks, Amy.
No worries, I'll keep this short. Thank you, Lisa. So our priorities at the moment, we're really looking into developing micro-credentials, short courses that can reach out and impact the most amount of people. So we're going through the approvals process, an expression of interest process as well into different micros. So that's something we'd like to invest more time and energy into. We also have Climate Ready Australia 2030 and Alliance of Peak Bodies. We've got about 13 peak bodies on that at the moment. And we're looking at National Climate Ready Research Agenda that's not directly with the Alliance, but it forms out of the summit that we had last year, and some members were involved with that. So we've got an opportunity, we're co-chairing a forum later this week with CSIRO, so that's hopefully will yield some further relationship building and opportunities. And also we're looking at a transition planning capability uplift program. So that's hopefully trying to get some funding from the government, state and federal government to support that, and that leads into obviously the shared agenda with Alliance of Peaks, and that could manifest in a variety of different ways, but definitely more micros. And we've recently put in 2 submissions. Helen's done that. So yeah, I'll stop there, but reach out if you need any further information. Thanks.
That was really helpful. Thanks, Amy. And yeah, it's been great to see the work that Climate Ready is doing. And I will put a link in the chat to the excellent policy framework maps out of that initiative in a moment, in case anybody hasn't come across those yet.
We'd love to get funding to keep those policy maps. Again, from government would be ideal to be able to keep those maps updated, because already they'd be out of date, even though they were 6 months ago. You know, things are evolving so rapidly, but it's such a useful tool. Yeah.
Yes, and we mention them and advocate for them in all of our meetings with departments and the Climate Change Authority. So yeah,
thank you.
Advocates in us for those, very valuable tool. So Stuart, how's your audio going? Sorry about this, Stuart. That's frustrating.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you. Excellent.
Sorry about that.
No,
I am Stuart from WWF, speaking on behalf of the people in the land and ag sector who are working together through BFA. So for advocacy priorities, we've been working on around nature-based solutions in national climate and biodiversity strategies, such as the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, the National Forest Policy Statement Review, supporting the National EPA and Environmental Information Australia to get better land sector carbon accounting and better compliance and enforcement around land clearing and logging, joint advocacy and submission, which was a great process on the ag and land sectoral plan, inputting to the nature positive reforms, that is the amendments to the federal nature laws, the 30 by 30 agenda to protect 30% of land by 2030, and tried to get a big announceables out of the federal and New South Wales government at the Nature Positive Summit in October in Sydney. There are 5 elections in the next 12 or so months, 4 state ones and the federal ones. So there's a lot of opportunity and requests for us to brief politicians, ministers, oppositions, crossbenchers, journalists. That's keeping us busy. So we're developing robust policies around sustainable land management. That's quite a challenge across various organisations involved in the land and ag sector group. It's quite a privilege to be involved in that, highlighting good practice case studies, and we partner with groups like NRM Regions Australia and Next Economy to do that. And of course, joint submissions, for example, the land and ag sector plans to Climate Change Authority, the Federal Environment Department, DICU, and the Federal Ag Department, DAF. Looking ahead, 3 areas where we're hoping to collaborate on in the panels and breakout sessions at the forum. There'll be multi-sectoral panels and sessions, and we'll be involved in that. Secondly, developing scalable nature-based solution models to demonstrate how action on climate doesn't have to come at the expense of nature, and how that protecting and restoring nature helps abate and sequester carbon to help achieve a larger 2035 NDC. We're looking at financing mechanisms, looking at carbon and biodiversity markets, trying to understand the pros and cons of those and how they can apply what is high integrity in terms of supply and demand side for particularly carbon markets. And thirdly, having comms and amplifying the voices of the organisations around nature and climate nexus. So trying to bring greater consistency and harmony between the various nature and climate commitments in Australia, globally, and at the state level, very important. And looking at international examples such as from California and Europe to raise the awareness of NBS in Australia. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Stuart. And yeah, the forum in September is timed a couple of weeks ahead of Minister Plibersek's Global Nature Positive Summit. So we're very keen to work with as many of you that can help us to really scrutinise that platform and, yeah, make sure it's not a greenwashing platform, but is actually focusing in on real solutions for our not just Australia's but the world's pathway to zero emissions economies, and in a way that manages those land carbon stores sustainably. So yeah, great initiatives and a lot of detail, and a lot of the conversations in the nature-based solutions and land use and ag working group go over my head, so greatly value the work that Stuart and others are doing there. Thank you. And we also have on the call Peter Holding from Farmers for Climate Action, and he is one of the stellar members of our advisory committee for the forum in September. So Peter, I just wanted to quickly ask if you had any updates to add in terms of priorities for the farmers and the agricultural sector in Australia at the moment. Thanks, Peter.
Yes, we do, and they tend to be getting stronger, I guess, is one way of putting it. We feel that there needs to be a focus on properly assessing the risk of global warming. We see too many ag policies, especially coming out of NFF and various places, saying that they'll agree to change as long as it doesn't impact ag. We feel that might have worked back in the 19th century or whenever it was, but it sure as hell won't work now. So we want a proper assessment of the impacts of not taking action, because we believe they'll be severe on the ag sector. We want a continued push for rollouts. I know this morning that the LNP are pushing back on that. We feel that we need rollouts, especially a battery component of rollouts or storage component, to keep the costs for consumers down, not to mention it would help farmers run their farms. I don't think many analysts pointing out the fact that if we electrify everything, we're going to need about 10 times the amount of electricity we currently produce, which increases demand and it's going to increase costs, which is what you're seeing. So, you know, the quicker we get this done, the better chance people will be able to afford some sort of electricity bill. And we're also pushing for a climate trigger in the NPBC Act, because if we don't consider climate in that bill, then there's not much point to having the bill. They would be our three main priorities. We were also very concerned about offsets. Pretty much we're trying to decide if they're of any use at all other than a delaying tactic. They don't seem to be able to get integrity into them, and I guess people are trying the best they can to put integrity into them, but the point from our point of view is that they should not be used until at very latest emissions are falling. So at the moment we're still opening up gas wells and emissions are rising, and it's just completely ridiculous to pretend that we can offset those emissions. That's it.
That was really helpful. Thank you, Peter. And yeah, love the work that Farmers for Climate Action is doing. So very keen to see how we can build as many of those stories into the program in September and beyond. And I'll also put the link to the briefing that Megan Sarowski gave in partnership with the Climate Ready Initiative last week on the ACCU scheme and where that's at for Australia, so the Australian Carbon Credit Units. So I'll put the link to the recording of that in the chat in case anyone here that missed it wanted to get some updates on that. And we're also chasing Karen Hussey, who's playing a key advisory role for government at the moment on the next iteration of the carbon credit units scheme. So we'll look to schedule a follow-up event in the next month on that if anyone's keen to be involved. And yeah, I'll talk to Amy with the Climate Ready team about how we can chase that one too. So we had a couple of apologies today from the health working group and others, but I did want to, corporate finance. We do have Evan Center on the call. He has said he's in his car, but he is the climate lead with the UN Global Compact team. So I'll just throw to Evan to give us a quick update on what's a priority for their members at the moment. Thanks, Evan, for joining us.
Hi, team. Thanks, everyone. Sorry, I'm in the car, so I have to keep this short. Apologies, I had a last-minute emergency come up. Priorities at the Global Compact in the environment climate change workspace. Right now, it's our primary priority, aside from all that goes into our conference, which I'm sure Lisa will empathize with the pain of planning. Right now, supporting businesses in our advanced climate reporters community of practice with kind of more advanced climate reporting operations. We've been working with ASX 30 type businesses and a few extras as well on some of the biggest and most pressing issues that they're dealing with. Most recently, moving beyond greenwashing in terms of the terms for litigation, which I feel like most corporates are across right now, but moving more towards strategic governance and liabilities for directors and greenwashing. We'll be moving that to Sydney for our next one around the same time as the conference, focusing on scope 3 issues. We're also running our climate ambition accelerator as well to support businesses that are setting science-based targets as a part of their transition plan. And then we are starting to build out larger engagement in the nature positive space. So right now, we're putting some efforts towards that, hopes that we'll have some stuff geared up for the end of 2024 and then moving on quickly into 2025. So those are my priority areas. We have a number of other things that we're working on. So if anyone has any questions or anything we can support with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Evan. And we're talking to some of the corporate finance working group members around how we can incorporate the business and investor community into the forum program, including we're currently planning a bit of a business breakfast with our friends at the Climate Capital Forum to speak to what conditions are needed to for Australian businesses to really play a key role in driving the transition of Australia's economy. So keen to and open to welcoming any ideas and advice, and also suggestions on how we can make that an impactful and positive discussion. And we'll be targeting potentially the Treasurer and others to be a part of that conversation. So that's all in train. And we also have Dan Sherrill from ACTU, who's just joined us on his iPhone from the airport, just landed. So it would be excellent, Dan, if you're also available to give us a quick update on the advocacy work underway with ACTU and the Renew Australia for All initiative. Thanks, Dan. You're there?
Sure, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Great. And apologies also that I can't be on video. As I said, landed 5 minutes ago here in Perth. But happy to be on the call. And thanks for having me, Lisa. So what are our priorities right now? I would name 5 things. So the first is that, as many folks saw, the Net Zero Economy Authority legislation, so the legislation that is going to set up Australia's just transition system for workers in closing fossil fuel plants, has been introduced in the Senate and will probably be up for a vote the first week of July. And so we are really, really focused on making sure that bill passes, which would mean Australia would join the likes of Germany, Spain, and really only 2 or 3 other countries in establishing a legislated national just transition system. It would be a huge step for us, taking some fire out of the climate wars and making sure that our transition to zero is just and speedy. Second priority, we've been working really hard with all the partners at Renew Australia for All to define what it is that we want. What is the economy we want to build and are fighting for together? And have identified 3. So I guess I'll say first, we had a huge win in the May budget after just almost exactly 2 months after our first joint advocacy day in Canberra, with the passage of the Future Made in Australia program, soon to be a piece of legislation that puts nearly $25 billion into clean export industries in Australia, like green hydrogen and solar and battery manufacture. Huge deal, arguably the biggest climate spend in an Australian federal budget in recent memory, so we're very happy about that. Now we want to make sure that there are conditionalities attached to all of that money, meaning that if you are a private actor that gets one of those tax credits, for example, you have to create good jobs, you have to respect First Nations rights and sovereignty, and you have to share benefits with the community, not just ship it all offshore to foreign shareholders. So that's really important. And then I think there are 3 key opportunities. What are the next big wins on the horizon in our estimation? One is green metals. This was the major piece left out of Future Made in Australia, is government support to create a green iron and aluminium industry in Australia, which would do a huge lift for helping our trading partners decarbonize while creating export industries, the size of which will ultimately dwarf our current fossil fuel exports. The second opportunity is climate adaptation and resilience. We want to see a massive package passed on that to really prepare our society in Australia for the climate impacts we know are locked in because of historic emissions. And then the third, and probably most publicly salient over the next year, we want to win a gold standard package for households and community electrification and efficiency. So basically a huge investment from the government to decarbonize every household and vehicle in Australia. Huge job creator, huge cost of living reducer, and really one of the big missing pieces of our transition to net zero as a country. So we are going to be doing a lot more work on that and looking for a future made in Australia level of ambition from the government at the very least. I'll stop it there. At least I think that's the end of the time. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. It's great to have those updates. And you joined a bit late, but we do have Kathy on the call and Monica from the Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance. And we've got a few suggestions in the program on the green steel piece, and then also the update from the local gov working group and others around electrification. So I think there's some really exciting collaborations there, and yeah, strength in numbers to have a collective impact on some of these pieces and get some really positive collective outcomes for policy and targets, and maybe some budget bids come September in Canberra. So yeah, very excited and looking forward to working with ACTU and other colleagues around those initiatives. Anyone else that wanted to give a bit of an update from their perspective? Maybe Jenny from Australian Museum, if you wanted to give some updates. Thanks, Jenny.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. I could give a bit of an update on Climate Action Week, Sydney, unless anyone else has done that in one of these roundtables since then.
No, they haven't. Yeah, that would be great, Jenny. And maybe just speak to what you're keen to do next as well in terms of the arts and cultural community. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I'm at the Australian Museum. I'm the curator for climate change in the Climate Solutions Centre. And my colleague Madison and I are doing what we can to increase engagement in climate solutions in the general community. And we do social research to figure out how best to target different parts of the Australian community, many different communities, in fact, and we work beyond the museum as well as at the museum. One of our things that we do is we coordinate a group of cultural institutions in Sydney. So we have a group called Sydney Cultural Institutions for Climate Action, and that's people working on curation as well as sustainability of operations within cultural institutions in Sydney. And so we just have a bit of a group to chat about what we're doing, share ideas and inspiration, and help each other out, and be a bit of moral support as well. And so that's a really nice group that's always looking for ways to really advance what's happening in the sector. Sector engagement is also happening at places like the AMAGA conference. So it's the Imaga conference, Australian Museums and Galleries Association conference every year. And so I tend to run like workshops there looking at advancing action for climate empowerment, which is part of the UN initiatives to ensure that we're not just focusing as nations on reducing emissions, but actually looking at how we achieve that. And we need that sort of public engagement, public participation, and how we enable that through education and training and pathways to participation through cultural institutions and others. So we're doing all sorts of things on those kinds of fronts. We're working on sustainability ourselves at the Australian Museum, but then things like Climate Action Week I think have been really helpful for us and other cultural institutions as a way of really being able to talk across many sectors, and having those audiences come to our events during Climate Action Week in Sydney was fantastic. We had people from business and from government and all sorts of and community groups as well, of course. A much more diverse audience than we often get for our climate discussions. And we didn't run many workshopy sort of things or any of those sorts of more creative things, but we did have some good talks. I think for Climate Action Week going forward will be much more exciting and do more innovative things. Looking forward to that. So if people aren't aware already, that's the second week of March going forward from now on for Climate Action Week. And also forums like South by Southwest are places where we're stepping up. I'm running a coffee and climate session at South by Southwest this year. I did a meetup last year, but just things like that, and talking at the Remix conference last week and so on are all really useful forums, I think, for making sure that we're connecting to as many people as possible And I've got a touring exhibition that goes out to the regions, which is one of the ways that I think we're being most effective at spawning those kinds of conversations or supporting conversations in small towns around New South Wales. It's currently our Future Now exhibition, which is dioramas based, is currently in Scone. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, it's a really great initiative that City of Sydney and a range of partners have been coordinating. And yeah, second week of March every year going forward is the ambition around that. And Jenny and I had the opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better, along with other orgs involved in the society circle that helped pull together a number of the events as part of that week. So yeah, great initiative in Sydney going forward to really help foster more collaboration and activities. So that's really positive. And I did want to just check, we do have Emma Bacon and also Dr. Melanie Lowe on the call that I know are in touch with a couple of members of our health working group who unfortunately were unable to make it today. Jasmine from Australian National Midwifery Federation was going to jump on, but she had a clash last minute. But they are talking about a pre-forum roundtable at Parliament sponsored by Senator Pocock to basically focus in on the budget ask needed to adequately engage the health sector to implement the National Health and Climate Strategy. So that was a big omission in the last federal budget. But I did want to just give both Dr. Melanie Lowe and Emma just a chance to update us on any priorities if you wanted to, but no pressure.
I actually haven't been an active part of the discussion on that particular thing, so I'll probably leave it to someone else.
Yep, if you wanted to share anything that is on your list for sweltering cities that others might be able to support, also warmly welcome that, Emma.
Winter is our less busy period, very seasonally driven work around heat. I think what we're really looking at is, we've had the National Climate and Health Strategy released without funding attached. And by the end of this year, we're going to have a national adaptation plan and a national climate risk assessment. And we want to get the government to commit to funding those. We're starting to talk about, what does a future made in Australia equivalent for climate adaptation look like? And basically pointing to the national adaptation plan and that focus on health and the health impacts of climate, but looking at the root solutions, not the symptoms. So actually looking at how do we have safe homes, dignified, safe work, healthy communities, sustainable transport, things like that, all those things that are the social and environmental determinants of health that are also, a really fantastic story about climate transformation. So those are things we're really looking at, really eager to talk to anyone else who's wants to collaborate on pushing the government to actually fund the strategies they keep on releasing in this area.
Yeah, excellent.
And then,
thanks.
it'll get to summer and we'll do more heat business.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. And I think that Kira, I don't know if you want to just mention the conversation we've had with Chelsea and a potential plan for the live podcast at the forum around the wellbeing economy and
yeah, I mean, the National Film and Sound Archive has incredible technical abilities for live podcasts, which is a really great opportunity to get the narrative out there to a broader audience. But I'm pitching the COP31 conversation with from Pacific First Nations perspectives for ABC Big Ideas. I think they had done a episode on wellbeing economy a couple of months ago. So we're doing the COP story. But if anyone else has suggestions for podcasts that they would like to pitch during the forum, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and we had a bit of a exchange with Chelsea, who's connected in with, is it Hot House?
Yes.
And, yeah, and just to talk about what might be possible to run a bit of a recording around that live. And we also had the ACT Chief Minister's office say that they'd be very keen to be a part of that wellbeing economy discussion and what that looks like in terms of the Chalmers wellbeing economy and measuring what matters framework, and then what that translates into as part of the broader picture. So a lot of the subnational governments do have initiatives, and the ACT is one of them. So that might be a potential collaborative piece, and Emma would love to hear your ideas and advice on that. So there's been a lot of great updates and lots of things happening, and it's understandable given it's the wicked problem of our time, and none of us are going to be bored anytime soon, so that's the silver lining there. So thank you all for all you're doing. I did want to just do a final call for if there were any other updates from those of us who've jumped online to join us before we go to what's next. No? Excellent. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. We have the I'll also share the link to the recording from our recent ACU briefing, and we've got a couple of other events in train between now and the forum in September. So if you have any ideas for webinars or contributions towards the advocacy objectives around the forum, please do reach out. We're also chasing Frank Giotso to give an update on the carbon leakage review that should be out in mid-July, so keep an eye out for that one. We also received a piece of advice that the draft national adaptation strategy will be released in early September as well. So we'll be reaching out to Assistant Minister McAllister's office to see how we might be able to align some collective advocacy around that as well. But yeah, if you have any other ideas or thoughts around how we can make the most of having a lot of excellent people and people with lived experience all together in Canberra for 1 week at a key moment to shape some budget bids for the March 2025 budget, and also make sure that the right topics are top of mind and on the headlines of key papers and digital media as we approach a key moment that we're anticipating for May next year. And also have a chance to get those ministers, advisors, the Climate Change Authority before they formally publish their advice to government, before Minister Bowen gives his annual status update on Australia's climate commitments and how we're progressing. And all of that can hopefully feed into the anticipated updated 2035 emission reduction target, our NDC for Australia. So, and COP29 will be somewhere in the midst of all that. So busy couple of months, and greatly appreciate all the work that's underway by all of you and the communities around you. So any final comments or questions for anyone that before we wrap, with Kira sending you away with some calls to action to help us with the forum? No? Everybody's very polite and shy, not asking for help. All right. Thank you. Kira, yeah, what would you like everyone to go away and help with?
Yes, I mean, I would love to have more time to come into all the sector working groups and get kind of more feedback. So I'm hoping to join those over the next 2 months. But yes, Hasmuk says, come to the BFF in September. Ultimately, that's what we need, is all of you in the one place. And we've got a media group coming on on board in the next month. So really hoping to showcase those case-based studies, those sector-led successes from around the country. And if you have, a story that has a really, a personal story that can attach to those sector-led successes from a community voice or an industry voice, we'd love to hear about them. And yes, look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. And yeah, there's a couple of really incredible stories coming out that we can also directly link to specific policy asks and budget asks. So we'll be, through the breakout sessions, we'll be looking to adopt the template from Albanese's Careers Summit that they held not long after they first came into government in, I think it was 2022, but might have been earlier than that. So yeah, we'll be looking to highlight the current initiatives underway, what's missing, and then hopefully we can get with Dan's comments around the work underway with the series of national conversations for the green steel, electrification, and the adaptation and resilience pieces. We're hoping this forum will also help to get a broad range of perspectives to help shape some costed budget bids and also some specific policy expectations around what we look to implement throughout the next term of government. So if you have any case studies that can be really powerful examples of what's working and where there's more we can be doing, that would be excellent. And the response from a lot of the sector working group meetings with advisors and department staffers is show us where things are working. So as many of those examples where things are working, or if even if it's not something that's involving government currently. So yeah, we had a great chat with someone who's working on some First Nations led clean energy and housing projects in the last week that we're hoping to get out there and see how we can shift some federal and subnational frameworks to get some finance flowing to get more of those good things happening. So that's probably all. And Quimby has put the code BESTFRIENDS24 in the chat. So that gets an extra 50% off the early bird rate. So please do get your tickets as early as possible to make sure you get our BFF rate for the forum attendance. And please do reach out if you would are needing some assistance to get there, because we would really love our BFA members and partners to be there with us to help make this week as impactful as possible. So yeah, just reach out with an email if we can help in any way. And yeah, we'd love to keep these conversations going. And yeah, please do let us know if there's anything we can do to support the great work that you're all leading. I'll leave it there, and this recording will be shared with next steps and a follow-up email. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon.